Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Parenting Exposure with Amina. And Happy New Year, everyone. Yes, so we are back. We promised around in December that we're going to get back to you in January 2021 about our delightful bouquet of programs and trainings. And I'm sure you've all, especially for those of you that have been on our E2P platform, I'm sure you've all been seeing the amazing programs we have lined up for the year. So thank you for making our 2020 awesome. And for those of you that will be joining us for the first time on YouTube, you are in for a treat. My name is Amina Yunus Ali, and I'm the host of Parenting Exposure. Now, Parenting Exposure is a weekly session that we have on our E2P platform where we discuss array of parenting topics, especially those dark ones that we would shy away from, and then the humorous ones that we sometimes are oblivious to. We share stories, we share tools, and we share strategies to make your parenting journey that much more connected, a whole lot more wholesome, and incredibly, consciously, very, very meaningful for you and for your children. Now, a lot of the topics that we'll be discussing this year would veer into adolescence, parenting an adolescent or adolescent, and or teenagers as you may likely call them. And a lot of the topics that we have for you this year are actually not to reprimand or to make you feel less than the awesome, beautiful person soul that you are. But the whole intent of this platform, this program especially, is to help you understand that if we are to change the narrative in the society, then we as parents need to do the job that is needed right from the home. We need to be more intentional. We need to be more conscientious about our programs, our connection with our children. And so that's basically everything about parenting exposure if you're joining us for the first time. Now, to my oldies, how are you? How are you all? Really, how's everything? How were your end of the year plans in 2020? Even as tumultuous as 2020 was, how are you faring in this 2021? And how are you keeping safe amidst the second wave or the third wave, wherever you may find yourself, of the pandemic? What's it been like for you? And how are you preparing for school resumptions tomorrow? Okay, so I need to put this out there. Really, if it were left to me, I do not think, especially in Nigeria, I do not think schools should resume right now. There is a lot, as in a lot of work for us to do to get this pandemic under control. Just this morning, I read that we were up by 1,827 cases. Now, this is not to scare you, but as someone living with pre-existing conditions, and as someone who has seen this affect close friends and their families, I know that if there's any time for us to be extra careful right now, this is the time. So, I'm going to put this caveat there for you to think about. If you're absolutely unsure of your child's medical or psychological safety in school amidst this pandemic, please rethink the physical resumption and try and see if you could work a schedule out with the school owners about an online resumption for your child, especially if the children are toddlers. Toddlers are loving, amazing kids. I've got one at home, and the only thing she wants to do is to hug, to touch, and to be with people. So it's pretty difficult to control them and ask them not to touch, not to basically social distance in this time. And of course, we know that this second wave for us in Nigeria is really brutal more than the first time around. So that's my rant about the pandemic and how you're keeping safe. So please, please, and please make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row and you've done everything possible to ensure that your children keep safe and you also keep safe too. You matter to us. So, on today's edition, I decided that we're going to open the parenting exposure sessions with something that we all do anyway. Every new year, we come up with new resolutions and new goals. We talk about business plans, we talk about new achievements that we want to have each new year. Exactly how much of these new year resolutions resonate with your parenting journey? Is this something that you and your spouse have specifically created time to sit down and discuss actively? So tell me, if you're watching right now, put it in the comment box. I'd really like to see, you know, how has your parenting journey been before now? And what new things do you want to inculcate in your parenting journey? How do you want to actually reconnect with your children? How do you actually want to ensure that they are not just an afterthought in your day-to-day plans to achieve those amazing goals you've highlighted for the year 2021? Be it business, be it physical, be it even family. You see, a lot of times when we create goals and visions and resolutions, we often think that being specific, of course, we talk about SMART goals. Being specific about every other aspect of our lives, apart from the family aspect, is something that we can always get away with. But it's staring us in the face, isn't it? How incredibly lonely some of these children are. Children as young as 9-year-olds are depressive, having suicidal ideations. And then teenagers, the rise of teenagers who are addicted to one substance or one issue or the other is on the high. My friend Daniela Olajobi, she's the CEO of Embrainiad, okay? She's got this fantastic kit called the Digital Dictos Kit. And, when she was asked why she actually started this program, this kit, why she actually created it, she mentioned how sad she was about the rate at which children were actually getting addicted to the digital technology. Now, the interesting thing is, in the midst of this pandemic, we almost cannot do without these digital technologies. It's often even a way for me to calm my own 3-year-old. But it's also important for us to begin to take note of what intentions we want to take, what tools we want to use this year and the years to come to actually reduce the rate at which our children are disconnected from people and super connected to the electronics. This, among other things, are one of the things some of the things that we'll be examining on parenting exposure this year. I also want to ask, when we talk about New Year resolutions, I want to share this fantastic story first anyway. So a client sent me a message and said, Coach, my 10-year-old asked me recently that, is it possible to divorce a parent? And at first she laughed it off, and then she remembered that we had talked about, children asking questions out of the blues are often an indication of their curiosity and then their sensitivity to certain topics. So she went on and asked him, why do you ask about children divorcing their parents? And he said, well, a classmate of his just said that his parents were divorced, and when this classmate asked the mom why the reason for the divorce, she said, well, mommy and daddy are just not are just not clicking. That was the word. They were just not clicking anymore. And he began to wonder, this 10-year-old boy, who's the son of my client, began to wonder that, well, there are times I don't click with my parent. Is it possible for me to divorce my parent? Or there are times where I actually annoy my mom. Is it possible for her to divorce me? As humorous as this story was, it actually points out to certain fears and certain issues that these children express between themselves. The more reason why you and I need to double up in our job and begin to pay attention to those out of the blue curious questions that they often ask. So if my clients had just said, oh, well, he's just asking about divorce because some parents who are not even their friends are divorcing, and just left it at that without further expressing, without trying to understand the reason why he's asking, how he's feeling, how this means to him. This may be a point to know that he may just disconnect totally from the parent. So, as you cast your resolutions this year, I want you to think about this very carefully. As you examine all the goals that you've written down, the amazing physical goals, the amazing business goals, the awesome study goals or self-improved personal development goals that you have written down, ask yourself, do I have a parental scorecard yet? Now, when I talk about the parental scorecard, I'm asking you to examine what is working for your child, not working for you as a parent. We tend to do what works for us as parents, mostly. But we need to also try and understand that we are raising human beings, not machines. We are raising people with soul, individuals with ideas and expressions themselves. And if we really want to know how well we are connected to them, we need to make use of a scorecard to examine how well they feel connected to us. What are your strategies for helping them clean messes up? Now, I'm not talking about the mess they make on the table top or on the floor when they eat or something. I'm talking about real life messes. I'm talking about those hard things that they may find difficult to come to you and talk to you about, but yet they break that wilderness and tell you that, Mom, I made a mistake. Daddy, I did something bad. How exactly do you intend to help them clean up their messes? Because guess what? Making mess, it's a natural thing. Actually very important. Yes, because that's how we learn. When we make mistakes, we learn. But if you are the kind of parent who is so bent on making sure that your child doesn't make a mistake, or so bent on not knowing when your child makes a mistake because they don't tell you that they've made a mistake, then you need to ask yourself, how well has this served you so far? What are the things that you want to change in your parenting style right now? What are the things that has come up in the past years that your child has said out of anger, pain, hurt to you, but you've dismissed? How about those things that they've actually even laughingly told you that, Daddy, you're so fond of doing those things, or Mommy, I know you now. This is what you do. How about those things? How do you think this is actually impacting their own self-esteem? Because we cannot continue to pretend that these things do not happen. No child becomes out of the blues at a loss of he or himself, of herself or himself. No child just decides to think about suicide or to actively become depressed or to be notoriously rebellious. There are factors, and then there are other factors, and there are sub-factors. What role is your own parenting style actually playing in all these factors? And what do you want to change? What are you willing to change? What are you willing to become for them to feel loved? Because one of the things I tell my clients, and I say in my classes, is this. It's one thing for you to say you love your child, and as a parent myself, I know how amazing this is. I mean, the bond that parents share with their children, especially the ones that we really want, it's so amazing, and we love them. But life happens, and sometimes we believe that they automatically should know that we love them. Unfortunately, because life happens, they actually find it difficult to believe that you love them. So what are the things that you really want to do to make them believe that you love them? such that when you actually scold or when you're actually helping them to clean up their messes, they're not believing that you're doing this because you want to be the super perfect family, but because you actually care about them and their lives, their choices, their voices, their words, their character, their values, not yours, but theirs. Because once again, I need to remind you, you are raising a human being, not a subhuman being, not a meaning human being, not a mini you, but a whole human being who is impacted and affected by words, ideas, thoughts, expressions, or lack of all this. So, um, I sometimes speak to parents and they feel like, well, you know what, my child doesn't have a choice, but he or she would love me. After all, it's in the Bible or in the Quran. I hear you, mom. I hear you, sir. And I totally get it. Do you know how many people, grown-ups, who are just on the respect resent spectrum with their parents? Imagine yourself 25 or 35 years from now, and your child is knocking at the door. How do you think your child will be willing to greet you? How do you think you would welcome that child? Is it with this effusing expression of love that you feel in your heart, even if you can't say it with your words? Or one that just says, there's so much water under the bridge, and we can begin to count them right now? It's a lot to think about, isn't it? I know. Anyway, that's why I'm here. And that's why I am so excited for 2021, because no matter how it is generally, with ourselves, intentionally, within ourselves, we can begin to make the right choices every time and as often as possible. But you have to commit to it. You have to be willing to do the work. You have to be ready to get uncomfortable, because, yeah, being uncomfortable is where the real growth begins, is where the real shift begins. And until we are actually ready to do that, until we are actually ready to commit to do the grind, just like we would in our academics or we would in our businesses, not much will change in the society. So it's up to you and I to change the narrative in the society. It's up to you and I to change the narrative in our families about what parenting really means. You are not just a parent because you gave birth to a child. You're actually a parent when you are consciously connected and you are ensuring that you are raising a responsible individual in the society. Because who knows? My daughter may meet your son one day, and then a new story begins. Yeah? Isn't that it? So let's stop treating parenting like a side business. It is the business. And if we really want to be sure that we are doing the actual work, let's start by evaluating what has been working so far and what we are ready to ensure would continue to work for us, and what other things we can begin to input to make it work for us better than it already is. So it's my delight to welcome you once again to 2021 officially on this platform, and I'm super impressed with the work you're doing as an individual, and I super hope that you and I would really see the fruits of the work in a much more positive, delightful ambient in the society as we all grow. Yeah? Okay, so that's the short brief about our talk this year. Oh yeah, I promised another story, didn't I? So the second story basically talks about, culture, the value of culture in our families. So a few days ago, I took my shoe to the cobbler, and of course, this cobbler had some young persons working with him, and he had to gum a part of my shoe. So to hasten the process, he asked this young boy to be using his mouth to breathe to blow the whole thing so that it will dry up quickly. And I asked him, I said, is there a reason why you're asking this boy to do this? And he said, well, it's the way he was taught. And I said, okay, but really, what is the reason behind the boy using his mouth to blow the shoe? And he said, well, it will make the gum dry faster. So I got into the car, took out a book, gave it to the boy. I said, use this to blow the shoe. And the man was like, no, but that was the way he was taught. And I laughed and I said, okay, so between the breath of his mouth and the book, which one do you think would work faster? And of course, he couldn't say anything. He couldn't say anything. Sometimes we are so used to a particular way of doing things in our parenting journey because that was the way we were raised up. So, and if you want to really evaluate your parenting scorecard, one of the things you need to ask yourself is, what exactly were those things I was told what was it like being a child of my parent? What were those things that I loved? And what were those things I really absolutely did not like? Are there any of those things that I'm imbibing right now in my parenting connection with my child? So, I've given you some tidbits of our parental scorecard, haven't I? But if you really want to learn more, we've got this fantastic program coming up in January, and later this month, January 28th to the 30th. It's called Visioning as Parents. And that's where we're going to have this whole lot of workbook where you truly really get down to work and know your parenting scorecard with your children. No matter how old they are, you can think even if they are 2 years old, this parenting scorecard works. Okay? And we also examine what do you want your relationship to be like with your children? What are the likely hazards you may likely encounter in raising them up? Because, hey, as much as each human being comes into this world a blank slate, some of the things in life are natural, like, teenagehood. Yeah? What kind of teenager were you? What kind of teenager do you think your child will be? I can tell you some things about my daughter now, even though she's 3 years old. And when she's 13, her voice is going to be loud. Yeah, because I can see the trait right now. And you can too. You can begin to see and watch out for what are the likely things that you would encounter when your child would move from toddlerhood to teenagehood, and then from that to a young adult. And you can begin to envisage and prepare and plan ahead of time. That is what visioning as parents does. It's not visioning a perfect child, it's actually visioning an amazing connection with your child. Being there with your child, your children. So, that's what visioning for parents is about. And if you've got an adolescent in your care from ages 11 to 17, I've got a wonderful program for them too. It's called the Teen Transition Therapy. Now, as teenagers, for the past 17 years, thereabout, I've been working with teenagers, and one of the things I know is this. The adolescent years are really, really emotionally draining for most teenagers. No matter how well adjusted they are, they still have all those fears of fitting in and belonging. They have this self-esteem issues and identity crisis, and a lot more that we as parents, even though we've passed through the same thing, we often just dismiss, either by not because we intentionally do it, but because we expect them that they would get over it. After all, we did too. But like I said about the story of the cobbler and the young boy, it doesn't have to be because you passed through it and you survived that they just also have to survive. They can actually thrive during the adolescent period. They can understand who they are without having to second guess that from the idea of what their peers are saying or what you the parents are expecting. They can actually begin to work from within. So Teen Transition Therapy / coaching is actually a fantastic program for them to do this. And we've also got the Kindness Circle. Kindness Circle is a group therapy session, a maximum of 15 teenagers at a time, also 11 to 17, where they get to talk about and express fully themselves, find their voice, and actually get to understand that they are not alone on this journey of adolescence. And sometimes sharing is actually half the job done. in becoming responsible, in becoming value driven. So there are more programs for you to enroll your teens and yourself in. You see, I always tell parents this. It's one thing for you to want a coach or a therapist to work with your teenager, but sometimes the number one person that they need the most, in fact, all of the times, the number one person that they need the most is you, the parents. And you can absolutely be that fantastic therapist for them by being there for them and getting to do the work first, getting to dream ahead, like Mustafa Mariam said. So yes, you can dream ahead. You can plan ahead. You can walk ahead to actually begin to create those strategies for them to become the value-driven young adults that we are all hoping they will become. So that's it for me to you. I'm looking at the Facebook group now, and I'm looking at the comments coming in. Star Mustafa Mariam, thank you for joining me. Mabodo Ajat Aisha, wow, I haven't seen you in ages. But it's so nice to catch up with you on the social media, and I trust you and your husband are doing fine. And the kids too. It's so nice to read from you. Ms. Nafisat Osman, thank you for joining us as well. So that's it. We've talked about you examining culture and how this has affected your connection with your child. We've talked about connection in terms of trying to understand why children ask some out of the blue questions like, "Mommy, are you going to divorce me one day?" Oh, that was so funny. But yet, it's also very sensitive, isn't it? Okay. So, once again, remember, parenting is not a side business. It is the business. Okay, so Ms. Nafisa Usman said, I don't make New Year resolutions, but I just desire to be a good parent. And that's often a very good place to start. But then the work is also important, and we can always get better at that. Okay, if you need clarity on this parenting journey, just send us a DM and we'll be right with you as fast as light. Okay, all right. So that's it for this. For today, there are no questions. Next week we'll be back again. But before then, of course, we'll share with you our calendar for the next 6 months on parenting exposure. The only time parenting exposure may not be coming up, and this was because we are very careful about the timing. Some of our clients are not in Nigeria, so we want to hold kindness circle at the time that will be convenient for most of the time zones, and this includes those not in West Africa. So kindness circle holds every last Saturday. We're starting in February. Kindness circle holds every last Saturday from 4:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. because we want to ensure that we are able to cover as many time zones as possible. Yeah, so our other programs also, E2P conference, of course, that is coming back in February, and I've got two amazing superheroes in the world of parenting to share that journey with me. E2P conference is absolutely free. You can invite your neighbors, you can invite your friends, you can invite your sisters, you can invite any of your family members. Parenting is no fun if you are the only one having the ideas. Every other person needs to be involved because our children are going to meet one day, and we want them to also share as much as the same values as possible, especially those universal values that are important to make the society thrive. So, invite people on this platform, invite friends and family members to join you on the E2P conference so that they can learn as you are learning as well. And it's absolutely free. Free for members and non-members, I know. But there's a caveat to it being free. Okay, so I'm going to let you in on in on that later on the Facebook platform. Any other person that wants to join our Facebook platform, especially those that are watching on YouTube right now, you can just search Edu Parents on Facebook. Okay, it's a closed Facebook group, but then it's visible to everybody. Or you can check the link that will be posted in the comment section right after this video. Okay, so that's it. I don't think I'm leaving anything out. I hope to see you next week, and I hope that you take advantage of all our amazing programs for you, and you don't waste time on that. All right. So have a fantastic rest of your weekend, and I wish you light and peace as always. My name is Amina Yonosali. I'm a parents coach, and I'm a teen transition therapist as well. See you next week. Bye.